I've always been conscious about what I put on social media. I've always wanted to build a profile that would attract people that are going to kind of take me in the direction I want to go. So, if I just want to, share, twerking videos and, count money like it's a cell phone and stuff, okay, but that's not really what I wanted to do. So actually, it was a casting producer in LA reached out to me via Instagram, saying, man, we love your profile.
Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library. And today I have a great guest on because it's always a pleasure to have other entrepreneurs on. But even, it's a little different when you have other podcasters on because they're constantly in the process of talking to people and, really diving deeper into their topic. So it's always good to have them on the show to talk about, their business and also for them to talk about their story as well. So I want to welcome to the show, Darren Brown. So welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, before we jump into, your business that you're in now and the space you work in and your podcast, tell us a little bit about, what was your background before hopping into those two things?
Yeah, well, I think my story is really a story of just trial and error. I'm not a trust fund baby. I didn't, my dad didn't give me $10 million and say live your dreams. It's just learning the hard way. So I started out, graduated high school, went to flight school to be an airline pilot. The market took a nosedive, no pun intended, and switching gears, becoming a locomotive conductor and engineer, driving freight trains. Got a job in South Florida doing bullet trains. Didn't like that. Did a reality TV show. Didn't like that. Had my business degree from the beginning, so decided to go into business. Here I am now.
Gotcha. Those are all some very, very pivotal changes. I mean, you hear about people making changes. I will say I've never heard the story of, airline pilot, reality TV show, airline pilot, train conductor, reality TV show, then entrepreneurship.
I'm a disaster. I'm literally a disaster. So if anybody's looking to me, I do not have it figured out. I'm out here learning like everybody else.
But I think that's one of those things that I find with, interviewing so many different entrepreneurs is the ones that just accept the reality that, hey, you know what, everybody's trying to figure it out. Yep. I mean, the faster you accept that, the better this journey is going to be for you.
Right. Exactly.
So now tell us a little bit about, I am interested to ask about the reality TV show. Like, how did that part come into the play?
You know what? But, the interesting thing about the reality TV show is that it really ties into my business in a weird way, because I've always been conscious about what I put on social media. I've always wanted to build a profile that would attract people that are going to kind of take me in the direction I want to go. So, if I just want to, share, twerking videos and, count money like it's a cell phone and stuff, okay, but that's not really what I wanted to do. So actually, it was a casting producer in LA reached out to me via Instagram, saying, man, we love your profile. You have fun, but you have a little business side, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was a scam, which is another thing that everybody that approaches you with opportunity online is not a scam, believe it or not. And, they told me the name of the network, things like that. I did my research and made it through and got put on the show. Never applied or anything. Just purely got casted right off my Instagram page.
Wow. What was the show about?
It was a dating show. It was 7 guys, 7 girls living in a mansion in California. And every week, the girls vote off a guy, guys vote off a girl. And fortunately enough, for some reason, I made it through the whole show. I never got voted off. So I was there, and it was just, a lot of drama and drinking, cameras in your face. It was a great one-time experience. I think I probably wouldn't do it again, but it was a good experience.
Gotcha. Okay. That is interesting. I will say, I've never had a reality TV star on the show before. So what took you a little bit further? I mean, when it comes down to, starting a business, one of those things that a lot of people, tend to have a challenge with sometimes is, being comfortable finding their niche. So, how did that play out for you, and what did that process look like for you?
Well, the thing for me is that I've always had the gift of gab, and I've always had an admiration for business because my mother was a very successful entrepreneur. So deep down inside, I knew that's what I really would have liked to do. That's why I got my degree in business. But sometimes the way life is set up, we start going into these careers, and it's not like we're walking away from. Well, at least in my case, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I wasn't walking away from $10 an hour. I was making a six-figure career, and that's a whole different animal. It's one thing to walk away from. Okay, it's just a job. I can, maybe make ends meet versus, I've got a nice place downtown, a nice car, and this is like I'm living kind of higher on the hog. To leave this and then go into my dream is not easy. So, but still having that, knowing that what your passion is deep down inside, by following that, it'll make up for the difference of lost income in the beginning.
Mhm. Gotcha. Gotcha. I think that's so true, because I think a lot of people do struggle with that whole kind of, what I've talked to some people is that it's okay if you're nervous. It's okay if you're scared in making that transition. Because most of the people I've talked to, they were scared. They were nervous when they made that transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now,
Go ahead. I'm
oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I mean, with that, I mean, how did you get to the point of, knowing that, hey, you wanted to be in the space of businesses? How did you get comfortable, like, figuring out, okay, all right, being in business, it's a wide array of options. How did you kind of start to narrow it down on to, hey, this was the angle that I was gonna take to scratch my business itch?
Well, the first business I started, I was 22 years old, and I had a business where I drop shipped green cleaning products to Chicago public schools. I had a little contract and things like that. Had a bad year in business and decided to close it because I got mad. I had to think for 2 years. But I didn't start my next business until I was 29 or 30.
Gotcha.
So it was years went by when before I was like, okay, this is it. So I think for me, it was just taking my time and knowing that the problem that I want to solve is the solution is something that I'm talented at. So if there's a problem, if I'm not talented at fixing the solution, then it really does me no justice. If it's a way that I can make airplanes fly faster, I'm not in aerospace. There's nothing, I can't cash in on that problem. So I need to find a problem that I know my talents can be the solution to that. And that's kind of what I did. That's how I narrowed it down.
Okay, gotcha. Now, when it came down to podcasting, what started to, open your eyes in that space?
Well, the thing with podcasting for me is because I have my degree in business, I've always looked at the business side of content. I've always looked at the business side of being a YouTuber, the business side of content creation and podcasting. So I never did it with the intent of becoming like a multi-billion-dollar Joe Rogan podcaster. I just felt like maybe if I start a podcast about business and I'm a business consultant, maybe I can build up a following and market my business to them and save some money on advertising. That was just my thinking process. How about we just do that instead of paying for all these Facebook ads? I'll just build up my own following, just market to them. They're already following the podcast in the industry that I serve, so there it is.
Mhm. I think that is a great strategy. So I guess throughout that journey, did you start to see, like I said, a different angle or different opportunity for the podcast, and kind of what started you to see that a little differently?
Well, I started that way, but once your podcast starts getting some legs and getting some growth and exposure, then you get exposed to the entire, affiliate marketing world where it's, hey, say you sell this, we'll give you 25%, or Audible will give you $10. And then you get into having a lot of people that want to collaborate with you that may not really match with your brand. There are people that want to get on the podcast that might sell tires, or they might be. I think I had a lady that owned a strip club here locally. She wanted to get a podcast. I mean, and I'm not against it, but I'm just saying, like, that's not really in line with my brand. So I had to get to the point where I had to stay on topic and bring people on my show that would be good for my brand and be comfortable telling some people no. I don't think it's going to be as consistent with my brand.
That's always an interesting place because I remember when I started switching to doing like this interview style
Mm-hmm.
for the content that we created. Because I mean, my background is accounting and finance. So
Mm-hmm.
originally we started off just creating accounting and finance for business owners, just breaking stuff down, making it simple. And then came with the idea of interviewing other guests. And it was like, okay, how in the world am I going to, find people to be guests on the show? And those early stages, you're like, okay, I'll take anybody. And
Right. Exactly. Somebody please come on this podcast.
So how long did it take you to get past that phase?
Well, I started a podcast about financial literacy originally, and I podcasted just by myself for like my first 10 or 15 episodes. And then once I felt more comfortable on camera and once I studied more podcasters and I kind of studied the format of these shows, of even if it's television shows, a lot of them are segmented, how long the podcast should be. No one's gonna watch your podcast for 2.5 hours. Then I was able to better maneuver my podcast to serve my audience. Also, what a lot of people don't realize that don't podcast is learning how this equipment is set up and the green screens and the lighting. And if you want it to look decent, there's actually a lot more that goes to it on the technical side. And I know nothing about lighting and green screens. I had to learn all that, photography, video editing. Unless you have a sizable budget, you have to learn how to do that on your own. And it's a whole nother world that you have to learn to make your podcast look professional.
Yeah, I can second that because, yeah, like I said, that was not my background, but having to learn that, like, spending time, watching, and reading up on how to set up lighting and because one of the things we started doing with the Business Talk Library when we first started doing the interviews is we would actually take like the lighting, the mics, all the equipment to the business owner and set it up in their place of business.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I have so much more appreciation for people who work on the lighting crew, the audio crew, because then you got to learn acoustics of a room. So I'm just like, you know what? Being able to do it from my set studio space, it has been like a life changer. So do you usually do your podcast on site or do you do it in your set studio space?
Well, I think now with COVID, everything is, Zoom or StreamYard, everything is streaming, and then that gives you a larger reach too, because it's, it's online, everybody's online, it's so many opportunities of people I can reach outside of just the state of Florida or just outside of Palm Beach County. For me, my office doubles and triples as a podcast. You can see I got some albums up in Chicago Bears, blah, blah, blah. But also I feel like the environment in which I'm doing my podcast, I want it to represent me. And I feel like that helps me to be more creative. And I feel like it allows me to be more relaxed and allow me to answer questions more sincerely. And also to push the person I'm interviewing to kind of pull more out of them, because there are a lot of talented people that sometimes they won't tell you if you don't ask. So I've just tried to create a space that really helps me to fire on all cylinders.
Gotcha. Awesome. So now when it comes down to your podcast, what are the types of guests that people can expect when they listen to your show?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a wide range. I think that there are some things that are very consistent with a lot of small business owners that we go through. And there are some things that are extremely unique. And it's like, it's all one or the other, like the last guest I had, she had suffered a traumatic brain injury, forgot everything from age 19 back, healed, started a online fitness studio or online fitness program. Since then, she's been on The View and all these TV shows, and her business is exploding. But she can still relate to feeling as an entrepreneur like you're not going to make it, or feeling like maybe I bit off more than I can chew. So although her story is unique, there is always some things that some viewer somewhere is going to be able to relate to. So I try to pull a little bit of that out.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now, if someone is looking to listen to you and check out your podcast, what are they searching for and where can they find it?
Yeah, so my podcast is Uncooked with Darren Brown. We talk about it's a podcast for entrepreneurs. It's just a simple podcast for entrepreneurs, and we talk about, like you said, different topics in business. I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, mostly on Facebook, but AdvantageFC.com. You can see all the episodes and stuff there too.
Awesome. Awesome. And I love every one of my, my listeners, my viewers, but I definitely strongly encourage them, check out other podcasts because they're going to be different perspectives. You'll hear from Darren's show that you don't hear from the TL Turner Group and the Business Talk Library. And, when it comes down to, your business, your entrepreneur is gain the wisdom wherever you can get it to move your business forward. So definitely check out Darren's show.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Now, when it comes down to the services and, and the consulting work that you do, what are the types of services or what are the types of target clients you usually aim to work with?
Well, so I saw a problem, and the problem that I saw was there are a lot of people on social media that are having fun, and there are a lot of people on social media that are getting rich. And Mark Zuckerberg's worth $100 billion from Facebook ads. Facebook makes money on ads. That's their thing. Their thing is ads. They don't have it. That's their thing. Their bread and butter is selling Facebook ads. And they're making billions of dollars. And it's just funny because, we get on social media, we give all this information away about ourselves, where we're at, what we're doing, who our family is, and we're not getting paid for it. But they're taking information and selling that to other businesses that are making money. So I said to myself, it's a lot of small business owners out here too that are buying these ads, but they're still not making money because being a YouTuber or being a podcaster or whatever is one thing, but understanding the business behind social media, behind sales funnels, conversion rates, having your CRM in place, how often you email people on your email list, the business side of it, I felt it was a large hole that was missing because everybody wants to be a YouTuber, but they don't know that you're under YouTube contract. You can't just say whatever you want when you're under YouTube contract. But a lot of people, I try to encourage my clients at least that, you will make so much more money if you take your content and apply the proper business structure behind it. You will make 10 times more money than YouTube is going to pay you. So that's kind of how I started my business.
Awesome. Awesome. So if someone's looking for you to, develop that strategy and to, to really, maximize the content that they're already doing, how can they get in touch with you and where can they find you on social media to, do business with you?
Yeah. So, my name, Darren Brown, type that in. You'll see my pretty face and all this hair. And Advantage Business Consulting. So if you put in Advantage Business Consulting, AdvantageFC.com, I'm sure there'll be a link in the description of this video. And that's pretty much it. I'm kind of hard to miss on social media. Advantage
Awesome.
Business Consulting.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, one question I like to ask every guest that comes on. I mean, when you think about, the journey that you've been on and you think about, where your business is today and what your aspirations are going forward, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other business owners?
With other business owners, I would say, don't be afraid to pivot. If something's not working, rebrand yourself. I mean, give it some time. Don't get me wrong, but don't be so stubborn to the point where, I have to stay with this. I have to stay with this. It's COVID-19 time right now. Somebody might be watching this years later. COVID might be over, but you got to pivot with COVID. You got to pivot when your job, when the market, I was in flight school. I had to pivot. The airline career is not going to, because I could have stayed with it. Yeah, I could have, but I had to pivot. And I think that I've achieved a somewhat level of success because I've never been afraid to move on to the next thing or take things in a little bit of a different direction when the time comes. That's my first piece of advice. The second thing I would say is, I would say to, be serious about your business. Some small business owners I meet, there's two types. There are the types that are in this for a hobby, and there are types that are paying their, $3,500 a month mortgage or rent. So if you want to have a business that is that's going to provide you career level, livable money, then you have to be serious about your business. It's not a hobby. You can't just post here and there when you want. You have to be very serious and meticulous about your business, and even hire a consultant like myself if you need a little bit of help. That'll save you so much more money in the long run by just hiring somebody to talk to or getting with a mentor instead of learning by trial and error like me.
Awesome. Well, Darren, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story, your wisdom, and your insight. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.